It was a Tuesday evening in late October, the kind where the air hangs heavy with the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. I was locking the front door of my house on Elm Street, the one with the peeling white paint and the overgrown hedges that my neighbour Mrs. Harlan always nagged me about. As I turned the key, my headlights caught a glimpse of it, just for a second. A dark sedan, idling at the curb across the street, its engine a low hum that blended with the crickets. The driver didn't get out, didn't wave, just sat there, windows tinted black, before easing forward and vanishing around the corner. I shook it off, climbed into my truck and headed to the diner for my shift. But as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that those headlights had lingered on me a beat too long. My name is Alex Harper, and I've lived in Willow Creek for the past 8 years. It's one of those small towns in upstate New York where everyone knows your business but pretends not to. The kind of place where the main street has a single stoplight and the local hardware store still sells penny candy. My house is a modest 2-story colonial, squeezed between a vacant lot and the Harlan's place. I bought it after my divorce, figuring the quiet would help me rebuild. No kids, no pets, just me, rattling around in rooms that echo a little too much at night. By day, I work as a mechanic at Thompson's garage, fixing up the Fords and Chevys that roll in from the farms and factories nearby. It's steady work, the kind that leaves your hands stained with grease and your mind mercifully blank. Evenings, I pick up shifts at the Blue Moon Diner, slinging coffee and burgers to truckers passing through on Route 17. Routine keeps me grounded. Wake up at 6, brew a pot of black coffee, mow the lawn if the weather's right. Grocery runs to the IGA on Saturdays. Church on Sundays if I'm feeling social. Willow Creek isn't exciting, but it's safe, predictable, the sort of life where the biggest drama is a delayed delivery from Amazon. That first night with the car, I didn't think much of it. Maybe a lost driver checking addresses or someone scoping out the neighborhood for a real estate listing. I got home around midnight, the diner's neon sign still buzzing in my rear view as I pulled into the driveway. The street was empty, sodium lamps casting long shadows over the cracked sidewalks. I flipped on the porch light, grabbed my keys and stepped inside. The house smelled like leftover meatloaf from the microwave, comforting, familiar. I locked the door, double-checked the deadbolt out of habit, and headed to the kitchen for a beer. But as I stood at the sink, rinsing my mug, something caught my eye through the window above the counter. The curtains were thin, gauzy things I'd never bothered to replace. Across the street, under the glow of the street lamp, there it was again, the same dark sedan parked at the curb in front of the old Miller place that's been empty since last winter. No lights on inside the car, no movement, just there. My pulse ticked up a notch. I squinted, trying to make out the make. Looked like a Crown Vic maybe, the kind cops drive, but unmarked. I waited, beer forgotten in my hand, until after a minute or two the tail lights flickered on. It rolled away slowly, turn signal clicking faintly in the quiet night. Weird, I thought, but not alarming. Small towns have their eccentrics. Could be the new guy from the mill, getting his bearings. I finished my beer, watched a little TV, some rerun of a cop show on cable, and turned in early. Sleep came easy, the kind of deep, dreamless rest that follows a long day on my feet. The next night was much the same. Shift at the garage ran late, a transmission job that fought me every step. By the time I clocked out, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in bruised purples over the hills. I swung by the diner, served up plates of fries and pie until closing. Driving home, the road felt longer than usual, the radio static crackling between stations. No sign of the car on the way back, but as I pulled into Elm Street, there it was, parked halfway down the block, engine off, silhouette motionless against the twilight. I parked in my driveway, engine idling for a moment as I watched. The driver's side window faced me, a black void. No face, no gesture, just the slow creep of unease settling in my gut, like I'd forgotten to lock up the shop or left the stove on. I killed the headlights, grabbed my lunchbox, and hurried inside. The house was cool, the thermostat humming softly. I flicked on the living room lamp, its warm light pushing back the shadows, and sank into the couch. But my eyes kept drifting to the window. Sure enough, around 11, after I'd heated up some soup and scrolled through emails on my phone, I heard it. Not the engine this time, but the faint crunch of tires on gravel, the curb across the street. I didn't get up right away, told myself it was nothing, but curiosity won out. Peering through the blinds, I saw the sedan, same spot as before, lights off, waiting. I stood there longer than I should have, heart thudding steadily. Was it the same car? Hard to tell in the dark, but the shape felt identical, boxy, unassuming. After what felt like forever, but was probably only 3 minutes, it started up and drove off, taillights fading into the night. By Thursday, it was becoming a pattern I couldn't ignore. Work dragged. I mentioned it offhand to my boss, Old Man Thompson, while we were closing the bays. "Some creep cruising the block?" he grunted, wiping his hands on a rag. "Probably kids messing around. Keep an eye out." I nodded, but it didn't ease the knot in my chest. Home that evening, I double-checked the locks before even kicking off my boots. The street was quiet, kids' bikes abandoned on lawns, porch swings creaking in the breeze. I tried to distract myself, tinkered with the radio in the garage, tuned up my truck's carburetor under the fluorescent lights. But every few minutes, I'd glance toward the street, half expecting to see it. And when I finally went inside, there it was, right on cue, slowing to a stop, then idling like a shadow. This time, I didn't just watch. I stepped out onto the porch, the screen door creaking behind me. The air was crisp, carrying the faint tang of exhaust. "Hey!" I called out, voice steady but louder than I felt. "You need directions or something?" No response. The car didn't move. I took a step down the stairs, gravel crunching under my shoes. The window stayed dark, impenetrable. Then, slowly, the engine revved, just a touch, and it pulled away, vanishing around the corner like always. I stood there in the chill, breath fogging the air, wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. Back inside, I poured a scotch, something stronger than beer, and sat by the window until the glass was empty. The house felt bigger, emptier, and for the first time I noticed how the floorboards creaked under my weight, how the shadows in the hallway seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. Friday morning, I woke with a start, sunlight slanting through the blinds. No dreams I could remember, but a vague sense of disquiet clung to me like damp clothes. As I brewed coffee, I scanned the street, empty, normal, but I knew it would be back, tonight and the nights after, slowing down, watching, and me waiting for it. That Friday dragged on like a flat tire you can't quite fix. At the garage, the air was thick with the smell of oil and metal shavings, the usual symphony of air wrenches and low chatter from the other guys. I kept my head down, focusing on a brake job for Mrs. Harlan's old Buick, the one she drove to bingo every Wednesday. But my mind wandered back to the street, to that dark shape that had become as predictable as the sunrise. Every time a car rolled past the open bay doors, I'd glance up, half expecting to see it idling out front, waiting for me to notice. By afternoon, the knot in my stomach had tightened. I wiped my hands on my coveralls and stepped outside for a smoke, the gravel lot crunching under my boots. The town stretched out quiet and ordinary. The feed store across the way, a couple of kids kicking a soccer ball in the empty lot next to the diner. Nothing out of place, but as I lit up, leaning against the shop wall, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me right then, from some unseen angle. Paranoia, I told myself. Just the lack of sleep catching up. Driving home that evening, the radio hummed softly, some classic rock station fading in and out as I hit the rural stretches of Route 17. The leaves were turning deeper reds now, carpeting the shoulders like a warning. I stopped at the IGA for milk and a loaf of bread, nodding to the cashier, old Mr. Ellis, who asked about the weather like we hadn't had the same conversation 100 times. "Holding steady," I said, forcing a smile. Back in the truck, the bags rustled on the passenger seat, and I scanned the rear view more than usual. Empty road behind me. No dark sedan trailing. Elm Street looked the same when I pulled in, porch lights flickering on as dusk settled. The Harlan's TV glowing blue through their curtains. I carried the groceries inside, the screen door slapping shut behind me. The house welcomed me with its familiar quiet. The tick of the clock in the hall, the faint hum of the fridge. I put away the milk, heated up a frozen pizza in the oven, pepperoni, extra cheese, the kind that fills the kitchen with that comforting tomatoey warmth. Sat at the table with a fork, scrolling through my phone for news from the outside world, anything to drown out the anticipation building in my chest. But around 9, as the sky outside turned inky black, I heard it. Not the engine this time, but the subtle shift in the air, like the neighborhood holding its breath. I didn't go to the window right away. Instead, I busied myself with dishes, the hot water running louder than necessary. When I finally dried my hands and peeked through the blinds, there it was, parked under the same street lamp, a block away this time, as if it knew I'd be looking. The shape was unmistakable now, low-slung, 4 doors, the faint glint of hubcaps catching the light. No plates I could make out from here, no stickers or decals to identify it. I watched for longer than before, my breath fogging the glass. Part of me wanted to march out there, rap on the window, demand to know what the hell this was about, but another part, the part that remembered too many late-night stories from the diner about drifters and small-town secrets, kept me rooted. Who was it? A neighbor I'd offended without knowing. Someone from my past, the divorce days, circling back, or just my imagination stitching shadows into threats. Saturday morning brought a brief reprieve. I mowed the lawn early, the mower's roar chasing away the night's unease. Clippings flew in green arcs, and Mrs. Harlan waved from her kitchen window, her face framed by floral curtains. "Looking good, Alex," she called over the fence. I waved back, wiping sweat from my brow. It felt normal, grounding. After I hosed down the driveway, the water spraying in cool arcs against the concrete. No sign of the car during the day. Willow Creek buzzed with its weekend rhythm, families heading to the lake, trucks rumbling toward the orchards. But as evening crept in, the routine soured. I skipped the diner shift, called in sick, something I never did, and opted for takeout from the local sub-shop, turkey club on rye, extra mayo, ate it on the couch, flipping channels, a baseball game. Then some documentary on unsolved cases that I turned off quick. The house felt too still, the walls pressing in. I paced a bit, checked the back door lock, even peered into the basement, dusty shelves of tools and boxes from the move. Nothing amiss. Yet the air seemed thicker, like the house itself was waiting with me. 10 o'clock, the crunch of tires again, softer this time, closer to my driveway. I froze in the hallway, pulse quickening. From the front window, I saw it pull up right across the street, engine idling low. The headlights were off, but the dashboard glowed faintly, casting an eerie blue on the windshield. I could almost make out a shape inside, a head maybe, tilted slightly. My hand hovered over the phone on the side table. Call the cops? What would I say? "There's a car parked outside, officer." It slows down. They'd laugh it off, or worse, show up and scare off whatever this was without answers. Instead, I turned off the living room light, plunging the house into deeper shadow. Stood back from the window, heart hammering. Minutes ticked by, 5, 10. The car didn't move. No doors opening, no footsteps on the sidewalk. Just that patient hum vibrating through the glass. I imagined the driver staring at my house, at the darkened windows, knowing I was inside, watching my every shadow. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the taillights blinked on. It eased away, slow as molasses, disappearing into the night. I didn't sleep much after that, lay in bed with the covers pulled high, listening to the house settle, creaks and sighs that I'd never noticed before. The wind rustled the oaks outside, branches scraping like fingers on the siding. By dawn, exhaustion pulled me under, but it was fitful, laced with half-formed dreams of endless roads and eyes in the dark. Sunday came grey and overcast, the kind of day that makes Willow Creek feel even smaller. Church was out of the question. I told myself it was the headache. But really, I didn't want to face the congregation's small talk, their knowing glances. Spent the morning tinkering in the garage instead, organizing wrenches, wiping down the workbench. But even there, doubt crept in. Had I left the bay door open last night at the shop? No. I remembered locking up. Still, the thought lingered, a whisper of vulnerability. By afternoon, I couldn't stand the isolation. Drove to the hardware store on Main, picked up some new locks for the doors, deadbolts, the heavy kind. Chatted with the clerk about the upcoming harvest festival, pretending everything was fine. On the way back, I took the long route, looping through the back roads, eyes on the mirrors. Nothing followed. Installing the locks that evening was methodical, satisfying, the click of metal into wood. But as night fell, the ritual returned. 8:30, and the sedan appeared, parking just beyond the Harlan's fence. Closer now, bold, I tested the new deadbolt from inside, the tumblers turning smooth. Yet security felt illusory, like a thin veil over something insistent and unseen. That night, as it idled, I noticed something new, a faint flicker from the driver's window like a phone screen lighting up, then gone. My mind raced. Who could it be? The new widow down the block, lonely and confused, or someone with a grudge, patient and unseen? The questions piled up, each one eroding the edges of my certainty. The car stayed longer this time, a full quarter hour, before drifting away. I sat in the dark living room until the small hours, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down, turning my safe little house into a stage I couldn't leave. Monday morning hit like a cold front, the sky over Willow Creek a flat sheet of grey that matched the fog in my head. I dragged myself out of bed around 7, the sheets tangled from another night of shallow sleep. The house was silent except for the drip of the faucet in the bathroom, something I'd meant to fix for weeks. Coffee helped, strong and black, but it couldn't wash away the residue of the weekend. That car, that flicker of light, the way it seemed to know my rhythms better than I did. I dressed in my work coveralls, the fabric stiff with yesterday's grime, and headed out early, hoping the drive would clear my thoughts. The garage was already humming when I arrived, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry hornets. Thompson was there, nursing a thermos of coffee by the coffee machine, his overalls stained from years of the same jobs. I nodded hello, grabbing my toolbox from the shelf. "Rough weekend?" he asked, eyeing the shadows under my eyes. I hesitated, then shrugged it off. Just the usual, house stuff. But as I slid under the hood of a rusted pickup, my mind wandered back to Elm Street. What if it showed up during the day? Would anyone notice? Or was it only a night creature blending into the dark? The morning blurred into routine, bleeding brakes, changing oil filters, the metallic tang of coolant in the air. Around noon, I stepped out for lunch, a sandwich from the vending machine eaten on the tailgate of my truck. The lot was quiet, save for the distant rumble of semis on the highway. I scanned the street out of habit, half expecting that familiar shape to cruise by. Nothing. Just a delivery van pulling up to the feed store, the driver hopping out with a clipboard. Relief mixed with disappointment. Part of me wanted proof it was real, not some hallucination born of stress. Back inside, one of the other mechanics, Jake, a lanky kid fresh from community college, sidled up while I talked a lug nut. "Heard you talking about some car last week," he said, wiping grease from his hands. "Still bugging you?" I paused, surprised I'd let it slip that far. Yeah, every night. Slows down in front of my place, idles for a bit, then leaves, like clockwork. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sounds like that old story about the ghost rider on Route 17. Nah, probably just some busybody from the mill, or your ex keeping tabs. The mention of her, the divorce, the clean break, twisted something in my gut. We'd parted amicably enough, or so I'd thought. No kids, no shared debts, just papers signed at a lawyer's office in Syracuse. Could she be back, testing the waters? I forced a laugh. Doubt it. She's in California now. But the seed was planted, doubt sprouting like weeds in cracked pavement. The afternoon dragged, my focus splintering. Every revving engine outside made me tense, every shadow from passing clouds shifting my gaze. By quitting time, the sun was already low, casting long fingers across the bays. I clocked out early, telling Thompson I had an errand. Instead of heading straight home, I detoured to the police station on the edge of town, a squat brick building with a flag snapping in the wind. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. Deputy Ruiz, a no-nonsense woman I'd seen at the diner, looked up from her desk. "Harper, what brings you in?" I leaned on the counter, keeping my voice even. "Nothing major, just... There's this car that's been parking outside my house every night. Dark sedan, no plates I can see. Idles for a few minutes, then goes. Started last week." She jotted notes, her pen scratching softly. "Any threats? Vandalism?" I shook my head. "No, just the watching. Feels off." She nodded, sympathetic but routine. "We'll send a cruiser by tonight, keep an eye out. Could be nothing. Kids, lost tourist. But if it escalates, call right away." I thanked her, stepping back into the chill air with a mix of gratitude and frustration. It was official now, logged in some report. But would it stop, or just make the driver more careful? Driving home, the back roads felt narrower, the trees crowding in like silent witnesses. I took the long way, looping past the orchards where apples hung heavy on the branches, their scent sweet through the cracked window, no tail, no dark shape in the mirrors. Elm Street greeted me with deceptive calm, kids riding bikes in lazy circles, the Harlan's dog barking at a squirrel. I pulled into the driveway, the gravel familiar under the tires, unloading tools from the truck bed, nothing special. Just odds and ends. I glanced across the street. Empty, for now. Inside, the house wrapped around me like an old coat, comforting yet confining. I microwaved leftovers, chili from the freezer, steaming in a bowl, and ate at the kitchen table, the new deadbolts gleaming under the light. The radio played softly, some talk show about local history. Tales of Willow Creek's founding, the old mill that burned in the 50s. Distraction, but thin. As twilight bled into night, I found myself pacing, from the living room to the hallway, peeking through curtains at intervals. The street lamps flickered on one by one, painting the lawns in sodium yellow. 8:15, 9, nothing. By 10, doubt crept in deeper. Had the cruiser scared it off? Or was I imagining the pattern? Stringing coincidences into a noose, I sank into the armchair, a book in hand. Some thriller from the library, irony not lost, but the words blurred. The house amplified every sound. A branch tapping the window, the fridge cycling on with a hum. Then, just past 11, it came. Not the crunch of tires, but a low rumble, growing closer. I froze, book slipping to the floor. Through the blinds, slats casting striped shadows, I saw it glide to a stop, not across the street this time, but at the end of my driveway, partially obscured by the hedges. My breath caught. Closer than ever, the sedan's bulk blocking the view of the Harlan's porch light. Engine idling, a steady purr that vibrated through the floorboards. No lights inside, but that blue glow again, flickering once, twice. like a message on a screen, insistent. I backed away from the window, heart pounding in my ears. Who was in there? Watching the house? Or me specifically? The isolation hit hard. Neighbors tucked away, their windows dark. No one to call out to, no casual glance over the fence. Minutes stretched, the clock ticking louder in the silence. I gripped the phone, thumb hovering over Ruiz's number. But what if it was nothing? A wrong address, an innocent wait for a friend, yet the air felt charged, heavy with intent. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was only 8 minutes by the mantel clock, the engine revved softly. Taillights pierced the dark, red eyes retreating. It didn't speed away, just eased into the night, turn signal polite as ever. I didn't move for a long time after. Sat in the dim living room, the book forgotten, replaying the details, the way it hesitated at the driveway, the flicker syncing with my own racing thoughts. Paranoia or pattern? The line blurred, my mind a whirl of possibilities. Old clients from the garage with a grudge, a stranger drawn to the empty lots, or something more personal, a ghost from the past I'd buried deep. The house, once a refuge, now echoed with questions. I checked the locks twice before bed, but sleep was a distant shore, the darkness outside pressing close, whispering of returns yet to come. Tuesday morning broke with a reluctant sun, filtering through the blinds in thin, hesitant stripes that did little to chase away the chill clinging to the house. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling cracks that mapped out like veins, replaying the previous night's vigil. The car had been so close, its presence almost tangible, like a breath on the back of my neck. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, feet hitting the cool hardwood, and padded to the window. The street was empty, dew glistening on the lawns, a paperboy's bike abandoned halfway down the block. Normal, but the word felt hollow now, a thin shell over the unease that had taken root. Coffee in hand, I stood at the kitchen sink, the steam rising like a veil. Through the window, Elm Street stretched quiet and unassuming, the Harlan's curtains still drawn, the vacant lot across the way, tangled with weeds that swayed in the faint breeze. I wondered if they'd noticed anything, if the sedan's rumble had pierced their sleep. Part of me wanted to knock on their door, spill the story over morning toast, but pride or fear, or both, kept me silent. What if they dismissed it as nerves, or worse, started watching me instead? Work called, pulling me back to routine like a lifeline. The drive to the garage was uneventful, the radio tuned to a weather report promising rain by evening. Trees lined the road, their branches arching overhead in a tunnel of fading autumn color, and I gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, eyes flicking to the mirrors every few seconds. No dark shape trailing, no unexpected turns. Thompson's was a bustle of activity when I arrived, engines revving in the bays, the clang of tools. Jake whistling some off-key tune while he aligned tires. I dove in, tackling an alternator replacement on a minivan, the methodical twist of wrenches grounding me. Grease under my nails, the sharp scent of battery acid. It was all familiar, a buffer against the abstract dread, but focus frayed at the edges. During a lull, I found myself sketching the sedan's outline on a scrap of invoice paper. Boxy frame, tinted windows, that subtle slant to the roofline. Was it a Ford? Something older, maybe a 90s model? The details blurred in my memory, sharpened only by repetition. Jake wandered over, peering at the drawing. "Still on about that car, huh? You should snap a picture next time." I nodded, folding the paper away, easy for him to say. His apartment was above the diner. Lights and noise constant. My house sat exposed, a lone sentinel on the edge of the block. Lunch was a quick affair, eaten in the break room with a thermos of soup from home. The TV mounted on the wall droned local news, a fender bender on Route 17, the Harvest Festival planning underway, nothing about prowlers or unmarked sedans. I half listened, my mind circling back to Deputy Ruiz's promise. Had the cruiser come by? I pulled out my phone, thumbing through messages. Nothing from the station, no updates. Just a spam email about garage supplies and a reminder from the bank about my mortgage. Isolation gnawed deeper. Willow Creek felt vast suddenly, its smallness a cage rather than a comfort. The afternoon brought rain as predicted. A steady drizzle that turned the lot to mud and muffled the world outside. I worked through it, rain pattering on the roof like impatient fingers, but every shadow in the puddles seemed to hold a secret. Quitting time came with a sigh of relief, though home loomed like a question mark. I stopped at the post office on the way, sorting through junk mail under the fluorescent buzz. Bills, a flyer for the church bake sale, nothing out of the ordinary. But as I slid back into the truck, wiping rain from the dash, I noticed my mailbox. Lid slightly ajar, though I'd emptied it yesterday. A trick of the wind, or fingers prying, sifting through my life. Elm Street was slick and shining when I arrived, headlights cutting through the gloom. The Harlan's lights were on, warm and inviting. Steam fogging their windows from dinner prep. I parked close to the garage door, as if proximity could shield me, and hurried inside with my keys jangling. The house smelled of damp wood and yesterday's chili, the air heavy. I flicked on every light, kitchen, living room, even the hall sconce, chasing shadows before they could gather. Dinner was simple, canned soup heated on the stove, bread toasted under the broiler. I ate standing up, peering out occasionally, the rain sheeting the glass like a curtain. As night deepened, the storm picked up, wind rattling the gutters and sending leaves skittering across the porch. I settled in the living room with a mug of tea, the TV on low, a nature documentary about nocturnal animals, ironic in its timing. The clock ticked past 8. Then 9. No rumble over the rain's steady drum. Relief flickered, tentative. Maybe the patrol had worked, or the weather kept whatever this was at bay. I allowed myself to relax, muscles unknotting as I flipped to a sitcom rerun, canned laughter a hollow echo. But around 10:30, as thunder grumbled in the distance, I heard it, or thought I did. Not tires on wet pavement, but a subtle splash. Like brakes easing in a puddle. My head snapped to the window, heart kicking up. Wiping condensation from the glass, I strained to see. The street lamp across the way cast a halo through the downpour, illuminating the curb in front of the vacant lot. There, blurred by rain, the sedan sat, not idling boldly this time, but partially hidden by the overgrown bushes, its outline softer, almost merging with the night. Water streamed down the windshield, distorting the view inside, but that blue flicker came again, brief, insistent, like a signal meant only for me. I stepped back, breath shallow, the mug cooling in my hands. Was it watching the storm, or me? The rain masked any engine hum, turning the weight into something more intimate, more invasive. Minutes blurred. I paced the room, socks silent on the rug, glancing every few seconds. The TV droned on, forgotten, its glow painting the walls in shifting blues that mirrored the car's light. Doubt flooded in. Who would sit through this weather for nothing? A neighbor's relative seeking shelter, or something deliberate testing my resolve? The house creaked under the wind's assault, floorboards groaning like confessions, and I wondered if the walls had eyes too, if privacy was just another illusion. 11:15. The car lingered longer than usual, a stubborn shadow refusing to dissolve. I edged closer to the window, nose nearly touching the cold pane, willing details to emerge. No plates visible, just the vague shape of a bumper sticker. No, rain smeared nothing. Then, as lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the street in stark white, I saw it. A silhouette in the driver's seat, head turned slightly toward my house. Not moving, just oriented. My skin prickled. It felt personal now, directed. I backed away, fumbling for the phone, but the thunder swallowed any resolve to call. What proof? A shadow in the storm? Finally, around midnight, the taillights pierced the rain, red smears cutting through the dark. It pulled away slowly, splashing through a puddle before vanishing around the corner. The storm eased soon after, leaving only drips from the eaves and a profound quiet. I didn't turn off the lights that night, sitting in the armchair until exhaustion claimed me, head lolling against the cushion. Dreams came in fragments, endless rain-slick roads, a car pacing mine, windows reflecting my own face back at me. By morning, the unease had burrowed deeper, turning every routine into a potential trap. The car wasn't just slowing down anymore. It was circling, drawing tighter, and I was caught in the loop, questioning not just its intent but my own grip on what was real. Wednesday dawned with a deceptive clarity, the rain's remnants hanging in the air like a half-forgotten dream. I woke early, the bedroom windows streaked with dried rivulets that distorted the view of Elm Street below. The house felt heavier, as if the storm had deposited an extra layer of silence, amplifying every small sound. The creak of the bed frame as I sat up, the distant call of a crow from the oaks. My reflection in the bathroom mirror showed hollows under my eyes, a man fraying at the edges, but I splashed water on my face and dressed for work anyway. Routine was the only anchor left. The drive to the garage wound through mist-shrouded back roads, the truck's wipers swiping lazily at the occasional drip. Willow Creek unfolded in soft focus. Farmhouses with smoke curling from chimneys, the IGA's parking lot dotted with early shoppers. No dark sedan in sight, but I checked the mirrors obsessively, the habit now as ingrained as breathing. At Thompson's, the bays were alive with the usual clamour, air compressors hissing, metal clinking. But it all felt distant, like I was watching from underwater. I tackled a simple tune-up on an old sedan, ironically enough, my hands moving on autopilot while my thoughts circled the night silhouette. That turned head, the blue flicker syncing with my pulse. It wasn't random anymore. It was deliberate, a quiet invasion. Jake cornered me during the morning break, his coffee mug steaming in the chill air outside the shop. "You look like hell, man. That car still keeping you up?" I nodded, staring at the gravel under my boots. Every night. Got closer last night in the rain, saw someone inside, watching. He shifted, glancing down the street as if expecting it to appear. "You tell Ruiz?" "Yeah, but nothing yet. Maybe it's time I followed it, see where it goes." The words hung there, bolder than I felt. Jake clapped my shoulder. "Be careful. Small towns got their secrets." His casual tone masked a flicker of unease, mirroring my own, and for a moment the garage's safety felt borrowed. The day dragged under a low ceiling of clouds, each task a distraction from the growing certainty that the pattern was tightening. By afternoon, as I wiped down a workbench slick with degreaser, Thompson pulled me aside. "Deputy called earlier. Said they patrolled last night. No sign of anything unusual. You sure you're not jumping at shadows?" His eyes were kind but skeptical, the kind of look that made me question myself. "I'm sure," I said, but doubt wormed in. Was it all in my head, amplified by isolation? The empty house, the divorce's echo. Maybe the car was a projection, my mind's way of filling the voids. Quitting early again, I skipped the direct route home, instead looping through the orchards where mist clung to the branches like veils. The radio crackled with a call-in show about local legends, ghost lights on old bridges, whispers of watchers in the woods. But I switched it off, the silence preferable. Elm Street appeared unchanged, the Harlan's car in their drive, a stray cat slinking across the vacant lot. I parked and sat there for a minute, engine off, scanning the curbs, empty. Inside, the house greeted me with its familiar hush, the new locks clicking solidly as I secured the door. I busied myself with small repairs, tightening a loose cabinet hinge, sorting mail that piled up like unanswered questions. Dinner was takeout from the diner, a burger wrapped in foil. Eaten at the counter while staring at the clock. Twilight bled into night slowly, the sky a bruised purple that pressed against the windows. I didn't turn on the TV this time. Instead, I sat in the darkening living room, a flashlight in hand like a talisman, waiting. The street lamps hummed to life, casting elongated shadows that danced with the wind. 8 o'clock passed. 9. The quiet built, layer by layer, until the air felt thick, expectant. I resisted the urge to pace, forcing myself to breathe steady, but my eyes stayed glued to the blind's slats. Just past 10 it came, not with a crunch, but a soft glide, the engine's murmur cutting through the stillness like a whisper. From my vantage, I watched it approach, headlights off, blending with the gloom until it slowed at the curb directly in front of my house. Closer than ever, its bulk filling the window's frame, the rain-slicked body gleaming faintly under the lamp. No idling this time. It stopped fully, doors aligned with my porch, as if parked for a visit that never happened. My heart thudded, a drum in the chest. But I didn't move. Watched. The blue flicker started almost immediately, sporadic at first, then steady, pulsing like a heartbeat from the dashboard. Through the tinted glass, distorted by the angle, I strained for details. The vague outline of shoulders, a hand perhaps resting on the wheel. It felt intimate, this proximity, as if the barrier of the window was thinning, our gazes locking in the dark. Questions flooded. Who are you? Why me? The house amplified the moment, the fridge's hum fading, even the wind holding its breath. I imagined stepping out, confronting it, but fear rooted me, a cold weight in the limbs. Minutes stretched into an eternity, the car's presence a silent pressure. Then, the driver's door cracked open, just an inch, enough for a sliver of interior light to spill out, illuminating raindrops on the pavement. No one emerged, but the gap held, inviting scrutiny. My breath fogged the glass. I wiped it clear, leaning closer. In that narrow beam, something glinted, not a face, but an object on the seat beside the driver, a small mirror angled outward, reflecting the porch light back at my house. At me. The realization hit like a slow wave. Not violence, not threat, but a mirror to my own vigilance, my nights spent watching shadows. The door clicked shut softly, the light winking out. The engine turned over, low and unhurried, and the sedan pulled away, tail lights fading into the night without haste. I sank back into the chair, the flashlight beam trembling in my grip. It wasn't pursuit, it was reflection. Someone, or something, mirroring my isolation. My routines, turning the watcher into the watched. But who? A neighbor playing games, my own mind fracturing, projecting onto the empty street. Sleep evaded me that night, the house alive with echoes, the creak of settling beams, the distant hum of a passing truck that sounded too familiar. Dawn crept in grey, and as I finally dozed, the dream returned. The car pacing mine on an endless road, windows down, revealing not a stranger, but my own face staring back, eyes wide with unspoken questions. I woke with a start, the street outside empty once more. But in the quiet, I knew it would return, not as intruder, but as echo, slowing down to remind me that in Willow Creek's stillness, solitude has its own silent company. And some loops, once started, never truly break.